Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining. Happy Monday, guys. In today's stream, like normal, we're gonna be going over the plays you guys want, but today is a little bit unique. We have Bitcoin exploding over the weekend. We have Moderna stock exploding. We could see if we look at Bitcoin's chart, out of nowhere, they just exploded past 39,000. They're pulling back a little bit right now, but we have a lot going on this morning. It's earnings week, and we have the FOMC press conference. We're definitely set for a crazy week. Tom, do you have any specific stocks or like anything you're watching for this week?
Man, I'm definitely going to have my eyes on a few of these stocks that are coming up with these earnings plays. And man, some of the bigger ones are definitely going to be crazy, like AMD. Here we go. I actually have the chart up here. We have Apple, AMD, Microsoft. Tuesday is going to be the big day, but today we actually have Tesla after close. That one's actually going to be really interesting. And I think that Tesla is actually positioned very uniquely on the chart right now. You know, they're kind of between those lows and between their $700 resistance. So I just think that for Tesla, historically, you know, they're pretty low right now relative to their highs. They're not usually this far off of their highs like this. And man, this earnings report, I think, could really make this sway one way or the other. And if we see something go negative with Tesla, man, they might fall back below $600 and fall back towards those lows down towards like 540, maybe 550. But like I said, it's just a very unique position for Tesla right now. And I'll definitely have my eyes on them coming up in after hours.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge week. Plus, like I said, that FOMC with Powell. Welcome, Click, I'm Fierce, Alex, Muscle, David, Trading Desk, Mike, Keisha, Raphael, Russ, Vicky, Hunter, Corbin. Thank you guys so much for joining today. As always, let us know what stocks you're watching or what stocks you guys want to see Tom and I cover. We're going to have the market open in like 10 seconds or so. But yeah, lots of stuff going on this week. We have Muscle saying an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Go earnings. How's it looking, Tom? Apple.
Yeah, I mean, Apple's stock today is up slightly in pre-market. It did actually dip down though, and it's just kind of sitting flat, but it is up, you know, relative to that dip. But man, at open now, we're catching a little bit of a red candle, but the market did just open. But man, I think Apple's actually looking very nice heading into these earnings. You know, we're around those 150 all-time highs. And if we see good earnings, you know, we're going to push up through 150. But if we see negative earnings, we're going to use this as a solid resistance and probably move to the downside pretty significantly, I would say.
Yeah, so Zoom's popping up. I'm looking at my watch list right now. Zoom is the leader. They're up almost 2% today. They gapped up, and they're getting pretty close to breaking out above that like 367 resistance.
Yeah, that's actually looking really solid for them. That 367 level, 367.50. If they actually break this, I could see a pretty good move to the upside. And man, the market just opened, and I would expect them to have more volatility today for sure. Sometimes we see Zoom move, you know, 5 to 8%. And it's always been like one of those solid stocks for us. And man, it's just looking pretty good overall. And we even have the overall market doing well. The SPY is actually moving up today again. And looks like we might hit all-time highs on the SPY as well.
You know it. And then we have Vicky asking about Dash and DNMR. So Dash, let's take a look. I know it was doing pretty well over like the past, you could say like month or so. It's pulling back a little bit right now. What do you think?
Yeah, it's pulling back. It's not my favorite stock in the world. I will say I do like the daily setup, though. I thought that they were actually starting to break out, and it looked really solid. So I'm still going to have my eyes on them. But for today, it just doesn't look too good. They pulled back. Hopefully, they can like hold this support around 184 and maybe move back to the upside. But man, I'm just not seeing too much with these guys so far. And obviously, the market just opened, but I don't like the way that they gap down.
For sure. All right, and then DNMR. How's that one looking?
DNMR. This one is actually pretty, I would say flat, if anything. It's actually just sitting right around that $18 like support area. Looks like on the daily chart, they're just getting lower and lower. So I definitely have my eyes on them. They were recovering up nicely, kind of with like Palantir and you know a lot of those other growth stocks, and now they're just kind of consolidating with them all. So I'll definitely have my eyes on these ones as well. I like it as it's coming down towards that like support at like $15, but man, it's just it's definitely been negative the past couple months.
For sure. All right, we have Corbin saying, I'm watching Apple, GLD, and Snap. There we go. So I know that Apple obviously has earnings this week. Gold has been moving Not really too much lately. It's a lot of choppy movement back and forth, which isn't bad to see. You know, gold usually moves pretty slow. And then he was also asking about Snap, which exploded on Friday, and they're pulling back a good amount right now. It's an interesting setup. I mean, you know, they had a huge day on Friday, so I'm not really too surprised.
Yeah, that was a really big day that they had, and man, that like after hours move on Thursday was just crazy. You know, like it made you pop the stock like 35% at the end after on Friday. So that just ended up being a huge rise. Definitely not surprised to see it pulling back with the red that we are seeing, but I will say Snapchat should do pretty well for the longer term. But you can just tell like on the daily level, it's starting to really break out now and hit off that 80 resistance. So just be very, very careful with it. You know, I would say if anything, look for puts on it. But for right now, you know, I would just almost not even play it.
All right, and then we have Justin saying, "What do you guys think about the CCIV and LCID merger?" I mean, everyone knew it was going to happen, so not really too surprised. And then we have Freddie saying, "Intel flying high, INTC." Yeah, this one's looking pretty good actually. Awesome movement from Open.
Yeah, that's actually really good. And it's almost the opposite of what we saw with Snapchat. You know, Snapchat exploded and now it's kind of pulling back a little. Intel crashed and burned on earnings, and now they're kind of pulling up a little bit. So I'm not too sure like if this is a good like I should say like fundamental moves with Intel or anything. I think that we could still see some downward movement out of them, but I really like that $50 support down there for it. And you know, they did bounce kind of like off that 53 support, so they are at actually a pretty good level right now. And honestly, if you're going to average into that to a good like semiconductor company for the long term, this is almost the only one at a discount right now. You know, AMD's right at highs, Nvidia's around highs too. Qualcomm is fairly close, you know, getting back to highs. MU is actually pretty good ways away, so MU is a pretty good option too. But for the semiconductors right now, the biggest ones are definitely going to be like MU. Like I said, I think that one's one of the best ones that is actually like away from their high. You know, like I said, Nvidia, AMD, and a couple of the others are just so high right now that it's silly. But MU and Intel seem like good options.
All right, and then we have Mike saying, "That's it. I had enough. I'm selling my Neo and Palantir shares." I mean, they've been struggling. Both of these companies have been struggling lately. Always trust your gut. Personally, I like them for the long term. Tom, do you have any levels or thoughts on these two?
You know, Neo has a huge level at $40. That's going to be a huge support. And we could obviously break that and go right through it to the downside. But I will say Neo should hold up for the longer term. Obviously, right now you're seeing a lot of these EV stocks go down. Even Tesla's going down, one of the best companies, you know, in the market. So it's obviously like not a surprise to see this happening. Also, keep in mind that Neo is kind of like a Chinese stock. So a lot of these Chinese stocks have been getting killed lately. Bob is down 5% again today. So definitely keep in mind that Neo is part of that. They're just owned by the Chinese government, by different Chinese entities. So it's definitely a big thing to watch out for. But I really like the $40 support. I know, Mike, that we've been looking at Neo for a long time. And honestly, $40 or anything just under that is honestly a very good level for Neo for the longer term if you want to like average into shares. I don't know where you previously bought your shares at, but I will say, though, for the longer term, I kind of like them and think that they'll end up holding up.
Yeah, I mean, always trust your gut no matter what. Looks like mRNA is still going, Tom. I can't believe this thing. It's at like $361 each. Like every day, this thing is just exploding, and like this is like an explosive movement. It's not like it's up 1%. Like these are huge candles.
Yeah, like honestly, how does this even happen? This is honestly starting to get so parabolic that I'm gonna have to look for them to hit like 500 a share or something. I mean, this is just getting absolutely crazy. I can't wait to see what they say at earnings on August 5th, because who knows? I don't think that any earnings can like keep this trend going. You know, like they're gonna have to have some of the best earnings I've ever seen in my life to continue this type of momentum right now. I mean, man, this is gonna be nuts with Moderna, and the intraday setups are just crazy, like you said, just big like parabolic moves throughout the day. And I'm really going to be watching them though for another move, obviously, as they keep going on, because a lot of times they just keep running and running throughout the day, like sometimes up like 7 to 8% even.
I know, and like like part of me wants to short it because it's like so overbought, and at the same time, statistically speaking, like when companies get included to the S&P 500, normally they fall off. So it's I don't know, it's just tough because the options are so expensive. Like let's say you want to go out to like August 20th and you want to get like an at the money put, like it'll cost you like almost over $2,500. So that's a lot. I don't know. It's just it's an interesting situation. I've been looking to sell some calls on it, maybe even some call credit spreads, because this movement is not sustainable.
Yeah, it's definitely not. It'll have to stop sometime or another. And when it does stop, I expect to see actually a pretty like a big move down. Like you've said, sometimes, the stocks take the stairways up, but the elevators down. So
Yeah.
I could definitely see it like falling off pretty fast. Like, for example, if we're at 360 right now, and this might not happen today, but let's say that we saw that downwards type of movement, we might see a big drop all the way down to below 320 or even down to 300.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, so we have Alex saying, "Can you take a look at CLOV, please? It seems to be popping with AMC." So yeah, I was just looking at it, and it is moving up. AMC is too. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, it's holding that $8 support. Unfortunately, today in pre-market, we saw a pretty bad dip down, which hopefully that doesn't show, what's going to happen for the rest of the day. I'm glad to see it popping up today at open with AMC. And, as long as we hold this support, I think we could be pretty solid for CLOV. But it's just going to depend on the movement, obviously. Like if we move below this, then we might have to just let it go. But as of right now, CLOV is still decent. And, keep in mind, this is only the second half of it, that we're still holding. So we did take profits on that first half, which makes it a little, a little less risky right now.
For sure. All right, give me 1 second. All right, with the next comment, we have Vicky asking about DraftKings. So, DraftKings, I know it had an amazing week last week. It's down a little bit today, but nothing too drastic. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it pull back, just given the movement it had last week. But what do you think, Tom?
Yeah, that $50 resistance level is going to be huge. If we can break that to the upside, I think that we'll see some good movement. But I'm with you, Mike. I think that we might see a little bit of a pullback right here. $50 is a huge level for DraftKings. And obviously it touched right off of that and went down. You can see we went to $50.01 and then just honestly, that was a pretty big intraday sell-off there at $50. So definitely looking for them to pass back above that. If they do, then I think it'll be a solid breakout play. But till they get back above there, I don't think like holding any swings or anything on this one is a good idea.
All right, and then we have Russ saying LCID is halted, and then Matthew saying NASDAQ, please. So QQQ, it is very mixed today. It's technically down a little bit, around like 0.2% or so. I mean, certain tech stocks are falling off, like NVIDIA's down like 3% today, and like the market just opened. So, while you look at other stocks like Apple, and they're breaking highs. So, it kind of explains why the QQQ is mixed. It's down slightly, but overall, it's definitely trending to the upside.
Yeah, and Apple's honestly, I think, fueling it, Mike. You're right. Apple's actually on fire. This is a pretty good move by them. At least an intraday pop. It might not be the biggest move they've ever had yet, but it's a pretty good move right now, and they're approaching that 150 resistance. So I'll definitely have my eye out for this one. It seems like they'll looks like they might just run up and touch that before they come back down, but looks like it definitely will get volatile. And the SPY was actually looking really hot today, starting to pop up as well, kind of like Apple was, but it looks like the SPY hit that resistance at like 440 and is pulling back pretty decently. So hopefully Apple doesn't start pulling back pretty hard like the SPY is. And it looks like Apple might be in the beginning of that with a red candle on the 1 minute.
All right, we have Trading Desk saying Tom sounds good, but Mike's mic is low. So I just adjusted a setting. Let me know if this sounds a little bit better. Thanks for that feedback. Then we have David saying Palantir, please. All right, let's take a look. So I like this one for the long term. Over the past couple weeks, they've definitely been pulling back. I like them for the long term. They have big support. They have a big support at like $20 or so, and another support right around, you could say, like 21. Tom, do you see any other notable levels on this one?
Yeah, I think 21 is going to be pretty big in the short term. It looks like we bounced off of those levels back on like July 19th and like July 16th. But man, other than that, it seems like that just these resistances, like the 22 resistance is going to be pretty tough in the short term, as well as like the 2250 area. If we could start to break out above that, we might start to see a pretty solid move back to the upside. But as long as we hold the 21 support, I think that we'll be good, and we might see that break to the upside like we're looking for. But Palantir's daily chart just does not look the best right now. You know, it seems like we're hitting off of those resistance levels and we're just moving back down, which is unfortunate for right now. But, you know, like I said, as long as we hold these supports around 21, I think we'll be pretty solid on it. It's just going to depend, like obviously, I think on like the growth sector overall. Like for example, today, you know, we're seeing a lot of these stocks red. We have Enphase red, Palantir red, Airbnb red, the marijuana stocks red. We have like LVS red, you know, the airlines red. So there's definitely a lot of red across the board. So it's not like Palantir itself is just going down, but I'll definitely look for a bounce off that support. And if we don't get one, I'll just have to go bearish on it.
All right, and then we have 11 saying PDD, please comment, thanks. All right, so this is a China stock. Basically, all China stocks are getting destroyed right now. PDD is down around 5%, BABA 5%, NEO 2.5%. There's like all China stocks are getting destroyed right now. The China regulators are going pretty hard against their own companies. Looking specifically at PDD, they have a pretty big support at like around 80. I don't know, Tom, do you see any like levels on this one? It's hard to judge with, you know, all this selling pressure.
Yeah, it's honestly been gapping down for a long time now. You know, there's a huge support on like the daily chart, or a good resistance, I should say, right at 100, of course. But under that, I kind of see a good one down here around 70. Looks like that was like the bigger support on the longer term. But you're right, it's really hard to tell this one right now. It's kind of like in the middle of like the range that it was in back in like the end of 2020. So it's not like you said, it's hard to kind of tell right now exactly like where the supports are and stuff, because we haven't been to these levels in like almost a year. So there's definitely been a lot of movement, but I will say be very careful with the Chinese stocks. They don't look too good to me. Intraday, PDD has a decent support around 87.65 or like 87.50. So somewhere like right around there is where I'd look for. But other than that, I don't think I'd play it too much. Maybe I would play like BABA for like a quick play like to the downside or to the upside if I saw something good there. But honestly, these Chinese stocks are starting to look terrible, Mike. Like just looking on like these 15-minute charts, especially the daily with BABA, we broke that 200 support, and man, that's definitely a bad sign for the short term. I know a lot of people were grabbing shares hoping that we'd hold $200, and this is just a terrible sign in the short term.
For sure. All right, and then we have a lot of people asking about LCID. So if we go to LCID, like on the past, like on like the 1 minute chart, it finally started trading. So there's not really too much to talk about considering there's only one candle. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if you have any input on this, Tom, but there's not too much to talk about.
Yeah, let's buy some and just hope it goes up. No, I'm just joking. Yeah, this is going to be some crazy moves here. And guys, be very careful, because a lot of times whenever things change tickers like this or they first come onto the market, now I know this was CCIV, so that I know it's just a almost like a ticker change here with that completing of the merger. But man, for right now, just be really careful, because sometimes we see stuff move to the downside after this happens. Sometimes we see it go up, and we can see how volatile this first 1 minute candle was. It was about a 1 point candle within that 1 minute time frame. So it's honestly moving up and down pretty rapidly at this point. And it looks like we might catch some upwards momentum, which I hope we do, because CCIV was getting pretty low on the daily chart. And hopefully this is almost like the catalyst they need to kind of push themselves back up. And I'm really glad to see them kind of change tickers, get back over to Lucid Motors. And I think that'll be a pretty big deal going forward. Obviously, this one sounds a lot better, looks a lot better, and represents the company in the right way.
Indeed. All right, we have I'm Fierce saying, when you're eyeing entries into the hammered stocks like BABA, BABA looks to be entering into pre-pandemic 2019 high levels. So yeah, it's really getting destroyed, and there are some pretty big supports coming up if we continue down. I don't know, it's just an interesting play, and I'm definitely a little worried with playing any China stocks right now because at any time, the Chinese regulators can come out, or if any bad news happens, it can just completely destroy the play. So they're definitely on my watch list, stocks like Baba and Baidu, but I probably won't play them anytime soon. And then we have, let's see, next question. We have Eric saying, thoughts on NVAX. Let's see, NVAX. All right, this one's not looking bad. It's just been consolidating over the past couple months. It has a very important support at $180 and then a resistance at $220. It's been consolidating between those two levels for like the past couple months. If it breaks below the 180 support, the next major support is 160, and then like that $140 area. So, Tom, I don't know if you have any input on this one or.
Yeah, I'm just kind of drawing it up on the chart here, but I do see all those resistance levels, and it's definitely trading like between this range. I would personally say it looks like that we're definitely going to be heading down in the shorter term, and this daily chart just doesn't look too good. The intraday doesn't look the best either, and I will just say it looks like we're going to be breaking that like 200 support level over the next day or two, and maybe head down towards like 190 or possibly down to that lower like 180 support.
Gotcha. All right, and then let's see, any other questions? We have Bro saying E-Trade is not showing any bids. Yeah, I mean, like, if you're referring to LCID, certain brokers kind of, like, glitch out on the first day because behind the scenes, like, they have to change things and, like, with the clearing corporation. So, definitely expect some errors depending on what broker you're using. At least for the first couple days. Like, it should be totally fine by, like, tomorrow, or if not tomorrow, then Wednesday latest. It takes a couple days to settle. Then we have Hunter saying casino stocks getting slapped too. Let's take a look at, like, LVS, Caesars, MGM. Let's see. LVS, yeah, they are getting smacked. MGM's down big. Caesars. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely falling off. WYNN. Yeah, I mean, LVS is the worst.
Yeah, I don't know why they're getting hit so hard. And a lot of this could have to do with, honestly, with that Delta variant and with the stuff going on. I've heard California and Nevada are like imposing more like mask restrictions and stuff. And I know a lot of people, they'll just they'll either like, number one, refuse to travel, or they'll refuse to obviously like wear a mask like while you're in a casino for like 6 hours. So like, it definitely doesn't seem good for them in the shorter term. Hopefully this is just like a short-term thing, and this pandemic kind of, obviously goes away, kind of like it was meant to do in the beginning. But it seems like just right now, a lot of like restrictions are coming back and stuff. So I would definitely expect that to hurt these casino stocks in the short term. And man, ones like MGM, they look like they're starting to really fall off the table here. Like they're hitting that 40 resistance really definedly there. And it just looks like they're going to be heading down towards that like 35 support level or even lower in like the next year or two.
All right, and then we have Keisha saying, what do you guys think of Peloton? So there's not like a ton of momentum with this one right now, but it's not at a bad level for the long term. They are kind of at that $120 support, and then they've been like slowly ascending over like the past couple months to this resistance right around, like, you could say between like 128 and 130. It's been a pretty strong resistance. It tried to break it a couple weeks ago, but it failed twice. So if we can like get like a nice clear break above 130, I definitely like it for like a short-term swing. But besides that, it's just kind of like a long-term like play for me.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good longer term play, and I love how it's moving up above these SMAs and just holding its ground super well. Like we're seeing a lot of other stocks pulling back, like Palantir and a couple of the other ones, but Peloton's honestly been holding its ground very, very well, and I'm definitely going to be looking for a good move out of this one. And a lot of people are saying that like if the Delta variant gets worse, then Peloton will actually do better because more people like work out from home again. So if we do see that, then hopefully it does help Peloton in the short term, because this might be one of the better stocks if that variant starts to, get pretty bad this winter.
And then we have Hunter saying Twitter's getting a spanking. Let's see. TWTR. Yeah, they're down pretty big right now. And I'm kind of surprised with this one, to be honest, considering the movement we saw with Snapchat on Friday. You know, when we look at like Snapchat intraday, when it exploded up, Facebook popped up, Pinterest popped up, Twitter also popped up, but yeah, I don't know. It's just it's not looking too good.
Yeah, for some reason they're pulling back super hard right now, and definitely not a good thing for the short term for Twitter. And on the daily, it looked like Twitter was actually going to start to break out up above like that 73.50 resistance, but then they got rejected right there, and just like a total like turnaround. You know, it seemed like I said, it just seemed like a definite breakout, and then they just got destroyed. So definitely be careful with that. And I guess that just goes to show you that earnings can definitely make these stocks go down. And I will say I've seen a lot of negative moves off of these earnings reports this so far this season. So I'm definitely gonna be a little wary with some of these stocks. And I know that a couple reported this morning, like Lockheed Martin, and I know they ended up going down on earnings. And let's kind of like check out like some other ones. We had Lockheed Martin, Hasbro, Otis. So there wasn't really too much this morning besides like Lockheed Martin and Hasbro. I think it's HAS. Yeah, HAS actually did pretty well, which is good for them. But so far, I'm seeing like a lot of the tech stocks kind of go down lately. And, you know, Netflix is one of the key ones that I saw.
All right. Then we have Alex saying, hello, any thoughts on AMC? I am still holding. What price are you still holding at? I'm very curious. But if we look at AMC, I mean, there's just, the momentum is gone, if we're being honest, at least for right now. A couple months ago, everyone was talking about AMC. It was on like the front page of CNBC, and it was everywhere. You know, everyone was talking about it. And this stock is strongly driven by retail traders, hype, and momentum. And the momentum is dying down. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be like that forever. I'm just saying what it's like right now. So, I mean, I'm definitely not bullish on it. I mean, at the same time, I would not buy puts on it. It's just like, I'm just watching from the sidelines, to be honest.
Yeah, me too. And I've honestly been like watching from the sidelines almost the whole time with AMC. You know, there hasn't been like too, you know, it hasn't been too like favorable as far as like safe positions go with it. It's always been more of like a riskier type of setup. And obviously, I think it's bouncing off this 35 support pretty well. You could say like the 31 support down there as well. But I really kind of like this bottom like level and these bounces I'm seeing. So if we start to see more good momentum, you could possibly target it up to like $45 or maybe 50, but I don't see it going back up to like all-time highs or anything like that anytime soon. And if you're like one of those bag holders, I would highly recommend that you kind of, you know, almost bite the bullet on this one, or, you know, just kind of definitely like trust your gut. But if you're like one of those guys who are like holding it no matter what, I would definitely start to be careful with it now. You know, whenever everyone was saying they were going to hold it, and we were kind of sitting at these levels up here around $60 in this wedge, it was looking pretty good, but we kind of fell out of that wedge to the downside. And sometimes you just have to trust the technicals, you know. And I think I think a lot of traders did, and that's why we ended up seeing it keep falling down. But obviously, there's still a lot of people who are holding it.
I mean, here's the thing, though, Tom. Alex is in at $8 a share.
Yeah, well, then that's not bad. I would at that point. Then I don't know what I would do. That's a hard say. I would definitely start selling some calls though on that for sure. Like I would probably try to get like the 50 strike or the 60 strike and just sell like weekly calls on this and just take advantage of these high premiums. The IV still at 200%. So man, I think that there's definitely a lot of smart ways he could do this. And obviously then if it goes up, then he gets out at a higher price. But hopefully he's able to like, you know, get multiple contracts and stuff like that. And he could like really hedge his bets if he has it at $8 a share, because that's honestly so low that if we saw a huge drop, he'd probably still be up, even if we like see a drop for like the next couple months.
Yeah, so if you have at least 100 shares, definitely look into writing some covered calls. It could put you in a very, very good position. And we have Russ saying Roku is still going up. Let's take a look. Roku, yeah, I mean, they're still rising, which is great. They're breaking above that 475 resistance, getting really close to that 480, you can say like 487 all-time high, which is awesome to see. There's a lot of momentum with that one. We have Jorge saying coin is popping. Let's take a look, Tom. Yeah, it's looking really good, up around 10% today. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it looks pretty solid. It's actually moving up with Bitcoin. And man, I'll tell you what, Bitcoin's starting to look really, really good around that 30,000 support. You know, a lot of people are buying it as soon as it like gets around 30K. we can obviously tell that if we look on the daily chart, every single time we get to 30,000, Bitcoin just pops right back up. So definitely looking for another good move here, and maybe we'll start to finally see a solid move back to the upside towards these all-time highs again. And the market is itself at all-time highs. We have the SPY getting really close. The QQQ is still pretty close as well. The Dow is kind of hovering there. And I would think that eventually, like as the market starts to go down, Bitcoin or something will start to fly back up as people start to fly back into Bitcoin and kind of, and especially right now with AMC kind of doing worse.
Yeah.
I could definitely see a big transition into kind of like Bitcoin and a couple of these other cryptos, especially like just because it's hype. A lot of people like to follow the hype. And for a while there, AMC was getting really hyped up. And right now, Bitcoin's having some big moves on their own. Like let's see the daily candle. It ended up being there up around 8.2% if you count this move today.
Yeah, that's pretty big. And, there wasn't like any major news with this Bitcoin explosion. Personally, I think it's just, some of these. Sorry, I think it's just some of these insiders like buying in. Bitcoin, relatively speaking, is at some pretty low levels right now. Like it had highs of like almost 60K or right around there. And it's been trading like 50% off its all-time highs. So personally, there's no data to back this up. But I just think that part of this pop has to do with insiders buying in or, some institution buying Bitcoin because who knows, like we have Tesla buying Twitter. Like there was some good news with Jack Dorsey. So that's just my opinion. I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple weeks or a couple months we hear some news on how, some other company is like accepting Bitcoin now or if, Goldman bought into Bitcoin or some crazy news.
Yeah, exactly. And I wouldn't be surprised. And especially with this like Bitcoin ETF stuff going on now, I think a lot of people are going to start buying into Bitcoin, especially whenever stuff like that starts to come out. And it's definitely going to be a pretty big deal, I think, for the shorter term here. But man, I really like Bitcoin, and this like bottom support level here, right around 30K, is so good. It was even good back in like how long is that actually? Like back at the beginning of 2020, I should say, or at the beginning of 2021, and it's been like obviously bouncing off of that level so well that I think we're going to see a pretty good move here, and definitely keep your eye out. And I'm kind of upset because I kind of missed the boat on Bitcoin. I wish I would have kind of pulled the trigger around 30K, but I just didn't do it there. But I know a lot of people have been like slowly buying into it, and hopefully it ends up going really well for you. I could really see it going up off of this bottom level. And I will say, like, just based off of like chart movement and the technical, I mean, this support has been really good. Like I said, even touching it at the beginning of this year, as well as like a lot over the past few months.
You know it. And then we have Click saying, waiting for enter AMD day trade. Thoughts for an entry price for shares. So let's take a look. AMD is currently down like 0.6% today. To be completely honest with you, I don't like the setup. I would not play this. I don't know if you have any thoughts, Tom.
Yeah, AMD's just kind of consolidating today. They had a really volatile open. It's pretty hard to say. They initially passed above that high, like at 92.37, and ran all the way up to 92.75. So it was really good for that like small short-term burst. But yeah, right now it's definitely pulling back, and you're seeing lots of red coming in to this into the stock right now. Obviously, it could still go up today, but I'm definitely more neutral on it now. And I would say it might just trade between the range of like 92 and $91 today.
All right. And then let's see. We have Vicky asking about SKLZ. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean SKLZ has been pretty solid the past like week, I should say. It's been like really hitting off these lower support levels, looking pretty solid, and hopefully we can see some more movement this week. It's just been really flat kind of at this 14 support. We saw a good move off of $14 like almost straight up to 16 over the next few days, but now we're just really consolidating. So definitely look for it to move over the next few days. I think that where it's at on the daily chart looks really solid. It's not necessarily my favorite long-term stock, but I will say buying it down here by the supports is never a bad idea, especially if you look at like good like risk reward ratios. And if you understand, like for example, if you get in right now and then we break this support level at 14 and we go down and you get out right away, it won't be too bad of a loss and you have a really high upside potential.
For sure. All right, and then we have Sean saying, "Morning, Mike and Tom. I'm just sitting on the sidelines till after earnings to play any stocks. Nothing really catching my eye at the moment." Yeah, I mean, I feel ya. I don't think that's a bad idea at all. And then we have I'm Fear saying, "So hard to be patient when you have one day trade today, saving it for the hybrid superbot." Yeah, I mean, hopefully it pulls through today. Very curious to see what it alerts. And then we have Vicky saying, "Diz is running. It's about time, Tom. Disney's finally on the way back up."
Wow, look at that. Up another 0.5% today. Disney's a pretty slow mover, so that's a pretty big move for them. But I'm really glad to see them start to move again. They really need some good momentum here. You know, they've been really hitting off these resistance levels, moving to the downside. And Disney's just one of those really solid stocks, solid companies. So hopefully they can start to go up. And man, I personally was just there and the place was so crowded. They better start to make some money because with how much that place costs and how many people I saw there, you know, they're probably raking in a lot of money right now. And with Disney Plus, I think it's just going to be a win-win. But one thing that does scare me is that Netflix lost out on their subscriber additions on their last earnings report. So if Disney has earnings on August 12th and then they report that they missed out on Disney Plus subscribers, that would be pretty bad news. But I know that there was some political stuff going on with Netflix and a lot of people weren't buying their subscription because of political stuff. And maybe that'll happen with Disney. I know a lot of people were upset with them for like taking away Peter Pan and stuff like that. So if we see something weird like that happen with Disney, then we might see them go down kind of like Netflix.
All right, and then we have Johnny saying, "Thoughts on MVIS for short-term options." So it's definitely a mover. Could be pretty good. IV's low right now. I don't think it's bad at all. Just one thing to watch out for is their chain is not too liquid. I would not call it illiquid. It's just, I don't know, there's not a ton of volume on it, so you just have to be careful there. Make sure to use limit orders if you do decide to play it. And, you know, it'll just be a little bit of a problem depending on how many contracts you're playing. So let's keep that in mind.
Yeah, and there's a huge support on Microvision down here at $10 a share even. That's honestly one of the bigger levels in the longer term. And I would definitely look for it to come down and maybe touch that. There's also that good support that it bounced off of at 13. I think that right now is a decent time to start averaging into the stock if you want shares for the long term. But for options right now, I would be neutral on them.
All right. And then we have Sean saying, "Just saw Amazon at 3,700. Yeah, this thing it's crazy. We have Kumar saying, "Thoughts about Boeing?" I like them for the long term. Honestly, in my opinion, shares are the best way to go with this one. They have earnings soon, and no one can catch the bottom, but they've been slowly uptrending. It's not really a short-term play for me.
Yeah, I really like Boeing for the longer term. Like Mike said, definitely make it a longer term play. In the short term, anything can happen. They also have earnings coming up, so be really, really careful with those. Looks like they're going to be coming up on Wednesday, so definitely look out for that. It's going to be very interesting to see how those go. I know that Boeing's had a lot of weird stuff going on in China, and a lot of obviously they had those problems with that 737 plane for the past couple of years, so hopefully they can start to like turn back around. And I know that with the pandemic, I know that there's definitely been like a lot more flights going on and stuff like that. So hopefully Boeing can kind of get itself back up there. And I've also seen a couple of good things with Boeing come across where I've seen some orders and stuff like that of some planes by some different countries and by some different companies over the past couple months. So hopefully that helps them out.
All right. We have Jorge saying, "Clove seems to be back on track." Yeah, here we go. We need Clove to pop up. It's up a little bit today, but I'd love to see it retest $9. And, it's been so volatile. And, man, Tom, it touched that, like, $10 resistance last week and just tanked off.
Yeah, that was actually a really weird situation, too, because it didn't touch it, like, while the market was open. The market closed and the stock was at $9. We broke the $9 resistance, flew up all the way to $10 at the opening of pre-market. And then by the time the market opened, in reality, we were sitting back down at $9.20. So it was a really weird move that Clove had overnight right there. Honestly, if the market was open, I probably would have cut the play right there at $10. But that was a pretty bad pretty bad way it had to move down for us, but hopefully it keeps holding this support. And I'm really glad to see it going back up like this. I think that that's showing that the support is actually holding up. So that's good for the short term.
All right, and then we have Spacely saying, "Good morning, let's go." Love the energy, Spacely. What stocks you watching? Tom, check out UPST. This one's moving up. It's definitely looking pretty good right now. I've been holding call debit spreads on it, and you can't beat this momentum.
Yeah, you can't. This is actually looking really solid off that 100 SMA on the daily too. I really like to see it, and they have a huge resistance up there at 130. And I'll be honest, we're a pretty long way away from 130. So if we see a good breakout above this 122 level, man, I think we'll see a pretty solid run. This has already been a really good run today, up 4%. This stock has been so solid. I know you've been talking about it a lot for the past few days, and it's been looking really, really good. And even on the daily chart, looks like it's really low comparative to those highs up at 190. And I would say it's definitely catching that type of good like momentum. So it seems like it could be a good like multi-day runner.
All right, and then we have 11 saying SNBR has a lot of potential. Let's see, SNBR. It's up pretty well today.
Oh, this is the sleep number. I've actually never heard of this ticker before, but I definitely have seen a lot of these commercials, and this is a very interesting setup. Unfortunately, they just fell below that $100 resistance, which is bad, but I'm glad to see them coming back up today. And if they do hit $100 and go back down, I would definitely look for them to still go to the downside. They've definitely had some bad moves below that $100 level, so hopefully it goes back up through there. But if we bounce off there, be really, really careful.
Okay, and then we have Sean saying, "Do you guys know why Adobe was going up over the past month? I have no clue why." Honestly, I don't really follow this one too much. It looks like their earnings were pretty decent on like a couple weeks ago. So I don't know. Honestly, I don't really follow it too much.
Yeah, and one big thing to keep in mind is that Adobe is like a really good system. They have a lot of obviously they're really big in like photo editing with Adobe Photoshop. They're really big into their video editing software with Adobe Premiere, and they have a lot of that like subscription stuff where you can pay like $30 a month to use all of it, or 50 a month, or whatever it is. But it's ended up, Adobe's just really solid. And as people are still like online, Adobe's just one of those really good companies that'll always end up going up, it seems like, unless, of course, then like once we see like kind of like content creation and stuff like that go stagnant, then I think Adobe will kind of go stagnant too. But for right now, man, that obviously like big things are going on with YouTube. It just keeps expanding and expanding, and anything, a lot of people use Adobe for lots of different stuff. So I could see why they're going up, and it might just be like really good like upgrades. I'm seeing some people like upgrading, like the S&P upgraded Adobe's rating to A+ on consistent strong operating performances, and overall they're just a really good company.
All right. And then we have Spacely saying, "I'm swinging Chewy, CHWY." Let's take a look. It is moving pretty well right now. It's breaking out. Give me 1 second. It looks pretty good. We're right under that $90 resistance, which will be pretty strong.
Yeah, it actually is. It hit right off that and is kind of moving down below it intraday. So definitely holding that $90 resistance is, or that 90 resistance is holding up well, I meant to say, but definitely looking solid. Like it looks like it might try to come back up and retest that soon. So I could definitely see it. And Chewy's one of those stocks that when it starts to run, it likes to run up too. And just be really careful though. That 90 resistance is pretty large. We just hit off of it and we're already up like a 2 to 3% today. So be pretty careful. But I will say I like the setup, especially on the daily chart. It looks like it could definitely keep going, maybe tomorrow, if we can break this resistance.
All right. And then we have Alex saying, "Can you take a look at BMY?" Sure. So looking at BMY, they're definitely selling off today. I'm glad I sold half of it on Friday. One thing to keep in mind is that they have earnings in a couple days. So I know I'm definitely going to want to close that position before earnings. Looking in the past, they do tend, like, when they get on these, like, breakout sprees like we saw on, you could say Thursday and Friday, historically speaking, they have continued up for a couple days, and a couple examples of that would be, like, on April 13th, again on, you could say, January 8th of 2021. You could say again on November 2nd of 2020. And you could even say on August 5th of 2020. So that was the pattern I was going for. It's definitely pulling back a little bit right now. When we look over the past 5 days, the momentum is definitely to the upside, and it is at a pretty big resistance level. So I'm not too worried about it now, but I definitely will not hold this one too long, considering that they have earnings very soon.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And if we can pass through that upper resistance, man, we'll see a pretty big move. But if we don't pass through it, then we don't pass through it. But like Mike said, whenever this one does go through, it has some pretty big gaps to the upside. So if we do see it, we'll see a pretty big move. And I'm glad that you closed half up there, Mike. I think that was really smart.
Yep, we'll see. And then we have, let's see, Mike saying, thanks, guys. I'm glad I held on to Palantir and NIO, at least for today. What are your thoughts on HNST? Let's see, HNST. It is not looking bad. It's just consolidating. IV is kind of high on this one. Relatively speaking, it's low, but 76% is pretty high. Honestly, I've never even typed in this ticker. I mean, it's at like a support at 14, but I haven't played it, and I don't see any great setup on it, to be honest.
Yeah, I haven't ever typed it in either. I don't even know what they do. And I will say that they IPO'd or something. At least they came onto the market back here and moved straight down, kind of like what we've seen a lot of IPOs do. But I will say, I think for the longer term, it looks pretty solid at this $14 level. I don't know anything about the company. I'm just straight up looking at the chart movement and talking about it on that sense. So if you know anything about the company, definitely let me know in the comments down below. But I'll say, if as long as we pass above that $15 resistance, I think it could definitely move well in the shorter term. But man, it's for the long term is the way I would want to play this one, especially seeing it fall down off of IPO like that. And it does seem like it's consolidating really well down here.
Yeah, so it looks like they have beauty products and cleaning supplies and stuff like that. So
yeah, not my favorite one then, but yeah. I could see why a lot of people would like it, and that sector could definitely pop off.
Yeah, for sure. All right, and then we have, let's see, Matthew asking about gold. So I'm not sure if you're talking about Barrick Gold or gold. So if we look at GLD, it's definitely selling off a little bit right now, down around 0.2%, but it's not crashing or anything like that. It's down slightly. It's making higher lows over the past couple months. I don't know. I mean, it's overall it's uptrending. It's not really doing anything though.
Yeah, I was looking at a lot of articles last night that was talking about gold, and they were I just saw tons of stuff like gold to the upside. You can see how gold futures kind of opened and exploded from 1800 up to 1810. In reality, it wasn't that big of a move, but I kept seeing articles last night saying gold futures are up on the Delta variant expectations and everything like that. And then today it opened, gold just sells off completely the opposite way. And just that's actually a really bad sell-off gold had today. And it kind of honestly, to me, shows that gold might move down in the shorter term. We have that FOMC meeting coming up this week. And if Powell comes out and they start talking about adjusting the rates and stuff, that's definitely going to affect, number one, the dollar, which will then affect the gold. So gold will definitely have a very volatile week, I think. And on the daily, we're right at this key $1,800 level. And it's definitely looking like we need this type of FOMC meeting to make us push one way or the other. And it's really hard to tell right now, but I would say we could move to the upside with inflation kind of getting worse. So if Powell talks about something about inflation and maybe them trying to change the rates around or change bond buying, then I think that it'll make gold go up. But if he keeps everything the same, I think we'll end up heading back down.
All right, we have Hunter saying NIO and Palantir hit the reverse button. I saw that. They're exploding right now. NIO's up around 1%. Amazing reversal. Palantir is looking pretty good too.
Yeah, I'm really happy to see NIO move back to the upside like that. It shows how strong it is. Almost every Chinese stock gapped down just like NIO did it in pre-market. So Baba did it. They're still low. See, they're not recovering up. DD, they also were down, but they're actually recovering up pretty nicely as well. Now they're up 7%. So we're seeing some of these stocks recover, which is pretty interesting. But NIO's definitely my favorite one to see so far. And that's a really good recovery off of that pre-market gap down, I should say, and it looks really solid off of this like $40 support.
All right. And then we have Click saying SNDL is going up. Yeah, these MJ stocks have been getting hammered lately, but it's good to see them pop up a little bit today. It's up around 3%, and Tilray is too.
Yeah, I'm glad to see him going up. I actually bought some shares of a stock, CANN, General Cannabis. I know it's not the best marijuana stock out there. The good news is that it's based in the United States, so that's my main reasoning for it. And it's really low. It hit off that 50-cent support, so I'm really looking for a good move over the next like few years. I'm definitely prepared to lose all the money that went into CANN though. If you want a safer marijuana stock, CGC is obviously really good. I think that the ticker MJ is going to be one of the better things to go for, considering that it has a lot of these stocks in there. But personally, I like MJ, but over the next few days, or especially for like the next week, I could see these marijuana stocks going up. We're like right at supports, and especially with Tilray and stuff, there's a lot of upside potential. And I think that we'll start to see some investors start to buy into this, especially with seeing some news lately about Schumer kind of putting a marijuana bill to Congress and everything. I think that'll really help some of these stocks.
All right, and then we have Alex saying Jessica Alba was one of the founders of Honest Co. Yeah, I saw that when I was just reading the description, which is good. Russ said, Riot, what a pop. RIOT, yeah, it's looking pretty good, and we're getting close to that high in pre-market of 33.81.
Yeah, that's actually really big with Riot. I love the way it popped. Obviously, it's popping because of Bitcoin's movement, but man, Riot and Mara have been holding up their supports very, very well. Actually, a lot better than I expected them to. They really held that $20 support on Riot, looked really solid, looks really good off $24. Mara held their level as well around 20, same exact level. And man, like I said, I'm kind of blown away how well they held their supports, kind of like Bitcoin, because it moves a little bit differently than Bitcoin, but in the end, it looks like that it's holding up with Bitcoin's 30,000 support. Whenever Bitcoin's around 30K, it looks like Mara and Riot are normally retesting that 20 support, somewhere really close to it. So I'm really glad to see this type of movement though with Mara and Riot. And I know a lot of people were buying off of those supports too. And I honestly wish I would have grabbed some shares.
All right, and then we have Johnny Leverage saying Roku coming back down hard. When is a good time to get for options? Well, it depends on what type of options. So like here, let me check something real quick. If we go to Roku, their earnings are pretty soon, so I'm not sure if you even want to get options on this one. I don't know. I mean, it's a tough play, and there's no just if this happens, then this. It depends if you're going to play puts or call credit spreads or calls or what. So there's just so many variables, but if you wanted to play puts, I would say the break of 470 would be a good time to enter, considering it has bounced off of that level multiple times over the past couple days, or today and then Friday, and then it's acted as a pretty strong support both today and on Friday. So that would be the main level I would watch.
Yeah, I think that it's honestly a pretty good play. It looks like it's bouncing off that 485 resistance. You could say the 480 level there. And I honestly really like it to the downside. I think that's a pretty smart play. And whenever I look on the daily chart, the last time it hit this level was whenever it went down 3 or 4 times back at the beginning of 2021 in February. So I think it could honestly hold up. But if it ends up breaking that resistance to the upside, obviously we're going to see a huge move up. Like Mike said, earnings are coming up. You can see the implied volatility starting to get really, really high. So if you hold it through earnings, I don't think that that's the way to play it. If you wanted to do something, I would do a quick put play to the downside, maybe for the rest of today or tomorrow. But I really like that level Mike gave out, that 470 resistance or support for today. As long as it breaks 470 to the downside, I think it'll be pretty good. But if it ends up holding there, I would definitely not grab puts on this one. It looks like it's pretty hot.
All right, and then we have Alex saying AMC broke the $40 mark. There we go. So yeah, it's popping up, and that'll have a great impact on CLOV.
Yeah, that's a really good move, actually. Let's go check out CLOV again and see if it's moving well. And yeah, it is up through $8.40. Now it's at $8.50. That's actually a really solid move, and I'm really happy to see AMC going up now. Usually I don't really care what AMC does. But with CLOV, definitely glad to see it moving like that. And man, AMC is honestly hitting that 30 support, holding it pretty well. And I know a lot of people like to come in and buy this one up. So hopefully it can keep going up for the next few days. It looks like it could have a pretty decent turnaround.
There we go. All right. And then, Tom, do you have any like specific stocks or anything you're watching for the rest of the day?
Man, Zoom was one of the really hot stocks earlier this morning. I've been still eyeing them up to the upside today. Looks like they could still go up and re-break that like 371 upper resistance. They definitely have a lot of momentum right now. They're up 2.8%. And I could just really see it. Zoom is honestly like moving very well off of these support levels. And they're a pretty high price stock at $369 a share. So I'm really glad to see these types of moves. And I think we could definitely see more today out of Zoom. I'm really going to be watching Tesla tomorrow with those earnings coming up. I think that's going to be a really interesting stock. And I think that with them kind of getting bought up today, that might show that there's some kind of like positive momentum heading into these earnings, at least. I would say on the daily, if we can keep going to the upside and maybe break back up through 700, we might see a new like resurgence out of Tesla. And I'm honestly really interested to see how they move over the next couple days heading into earnings. And then obviously I'm interested in the earnings, but heading into earnings, I think might be a good play too. It looks like it has a lot of momentum today, and Zoom just overtook the top of my watch list again as they're still heading back up.
All right, we have Mike saying thoughts on CRSR. I really like this one for the long term. For the short term, it's just not really doing anything. It's more of like a play for like the next 5 years for me.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at that too. For the next 5 years, in the short term, anything's going to go on with these guys. I would really assume that this microchip shortage is really hurting them in the shorter term. Corsair makes a ton of mice, keyboards, headsets, stuff like that, and they use a lot of those types of chips. So I could definitely see why they're down right now. But for the longer term, I think it's a solid company. It'll end up going up for sure in the longer run. Like Mike said, in 5 years, this company might be worth, 100 a share or something crazy. Like we've seen AMD move from like $10 a share up to 99 in just a couple years. So I think we could see that with a lot of these type of gaming/tech stocks.
For sure. And we have Russ saying Workhorse is up 5%. So it's pretty good to see. Yeah, it's awesome. So thank you guys so much for joining the stream. We had a great time. We have a lot of big catalysts this week. Obviously the earnings and the FOMC meeting. We're definitely in for an interesting week, so be prepared. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and have an amazing rest of your